I'm gonna first look in, like I said, a lot of you said rib tools, a lot of you said metal rib tools, which I think those are really great because you can, you know, bend them with your pot. You can really like scrape up the sides like this. And as I'm going in, you guys can even notice that some of the clay that's a little uneven on mine is still kind of starting to come off. So make sure it's really, really nice and smooth. You could use this side to side, kind of figure out what works best for you. And it's really gonna be like how you hold it in your hand. Another thing that some people said was to add some water with a damp sponge, or go ahead in and use some clay to fix the cracks. So both of those things are really good. The other one I'm gonna say is to use some thicker slip. So this is when your clay is still in a malleable form. It's still kind of greenware, moving towards that leather hard stage where you could still smooth it out. If you have any unevenness, I have a little uneven spot at the top right here. You can go in with little bits of fresh clay. So I'm just gonna take a tiny little piece out, and I'm just gonna kind of stick it on there, really kind of press it in, and then smooth it over. Now, with the porcelain, you only want to adjust little pieces at a time. You don't want to put a giant piece on there to patch up any type of little hole or anything like that. At the very top of your project here, some of you may have noticed that it is hard to smooth the inside of the coil. One thing that you can do that works pretty well is first use like the end of a paintbrush to go in and smooth it. It might look a little rough at first because I'm kind of like breaking down. And I'll show here, kind of breaking down where that coil was. But now I'm gonna go in with some fairly thick slip and just paint all of this up. If you feel like your pot is cracking anywhere on the top, just go in, paint it with some fresh slip, and you should be good. If you're getting some cracking in your project, it might be number one, you didn't slip and score in the beginning at every state, or number two, you're letting it dry out too quickly. So remember we said we want to let it dry out nice and slow, and then we're going to move into the next stage. So your goal is, once you're finished, is to try to get it smoothed out with your hands, with your tools, as easy as you can, as even as you can, and just finish your project really nicely on the top. Try to make it nice and round and even. So a few things that you could do as well. I went in on the top with a small piece of fresh clay. If you notice that you have any like larger sections like this that need some clay, make sure that it's still fairly fresh. Take some clay, really push it in. And this is only if you could actually like feel some moisture and smooth your vase still. And then just smooth it, really work it into the piece of pottery. Now you'll notice that I'm actually holding this with like my whole entire hand. It's getting a little bit fragile, and I want to make sure that it's not going to break, that I'm not going to drop it or anything like that. So you really want to treat it with care, especially going into the stage we're gonna go in tomorrow. Now you'll notice I have a little crack on the foot right there, just where I didn't smooth it in all the way. I'm gonna go in with some slip and I'm gonna fill that in as well. So if your project is still workable, but you're all finished. What you want to do is you want to let it start drying out slowly. What you're going to do is you're going to take your bag, and you guys probably have, you know, like a shopping bag or something at home, but I'm just going to use this as an example. You want to take it, and it's going to cover your whole thing, but just kind of loosely let it float on the top, and it should kind of cover there. That way it's going to dry out nice and slowly. Tomorrow, I'm going to go in and I'm going to show you guys how to do something called burnishing. Now, burnishing, you have to have your clay in a very specific state. So I'll let you know what that is so that you could prepare for tomorrow if you are finished and ready to start burnishing. If I have my project in front of me and I could still move the clay with my hand, it's not ready to burnish. But if it's completely dried out and chalky, that's a little bit too dry. Can we still burnish it? Yes, but it's a little bit too dry to burnish. Usually you want to get it in like that middle stage, which is hard to catch it in. So it should still be cool to the touch, but you shouldn't be able to go in and smooth any of the clay around. Tomorrow is when these little gems are going to come into play, and I'm going to show you how we are going to burnish with them. So just make sure everything's super smooth as you could possibly get it with your hands, as even as you can get it, and then tomorrow we'll go in and we will burnish.